There comes a time in every man's life where you just have to admit that you're wrong. You messed up on something. You had the, quote, wrong opinion on something, and now you're looking back thinking, how did I say all of those things and thought that I meant all of those things that I said, when in reality, I feel the exact opposite. That is exactly how I'm feeling right now with Donkey Kong Country Returns. Specifically, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. As I've spoken about, it feels like a million times at this point, the original Donkey Kong Country Returns is a fun game. It's a fine game, a good, solid fourth entry into this franchise that was held back a lot by the awful, horrible, mandatory motion controls and the resolution of the Wii. Obviously, they did what they could with the Wii, and just a lot of the game just felt very off. It felt very off-brand from what Donkey Kong Country should have been. And I kind of went into Donkey Kong Country Returns with that mindset that, this is kind of like an Elseworld story, Donkey Kong. It's still Donkey Kong Country, but it's a new generation. It's the Returns franchise. This and Tropical Freeze are the Returns games. And so you can imagine my surprise when I finished Donkey Kong Country Returns HD on my Switch, and I found myself giving it a 9 or maybe even a 9.5 out of 10. This is my probably my third favorite Donkey Kong Country game. It's shocking how big of a difference a higher resolution, a most of the time consistent 60 frames per second frame rate, and 0 mandatory motion controls can do for me enjoying a game like this. As I've said before, motion controls don't always bother me. When you have a game like Wii Sports or Wii Sports Resort, where the motion controls are the entire gimmick, that makes sense. That is the whole point of the game. And so when you take a game, a franchise, if you will, like Donkey Kong Country, and you incorporate motion controls, that's completely fine, because obviously this was back on the Wii in the prime time of motion controls, so it makes sense that they would incorporate some sort of motion controls into this game, and that's totally fine that they did. But the cardinal sin is that they made them mandatory. They made them forced onto the player. You did not have a choice if you played that original Donkey Kong Country on the Wii, on the Returns on the Wii. And I get comments, I get people DMing me on Twitter saying, you could just emulate the game, you could just emulate it, you could do this, you could do that. And I get it. And I know you can emulate games, but I just choose not to, because I just love playing things on their native hardware, or at least on a native console of some sort. So I thought I would use this video to kind of clear the air, because I didn't love the way that I ended things with my last video talking about Returns HD. Because in that video, I talked about how Returns HD is a fine port. It's okay. But the game on its own merits is absolutely incredible. And so I kind of wanted to use this video. I don't know how long it's going to be. It's just kind of me rambling. But I think I owe Donkey Kong Country Returns an apology. Because being able to play this game in full 1080p glory, almost a constant 60 frames per second, better textures, better lighting, better visuals, a better visual and audio experience in general, and a lack of motion controls really made me appreciate every single thing that this game was trying to do. And not only that, it made me appreciate the ideas and the new things they were trying out in the process. Whether that be me appreciating the Tiki Tak tribe even more, even though I already think they are the most underrated faction, not only in Donkey Kong's villains, but in a lot of gaming villains in general. The Tikis being realized like this in 1080p with better sound, better resolution, it makes me like every mechanic introduced in this game more when it's in a game that I can enjoy more. And I know that might sound dumb, but you know, if you go to a restaurant and the atmosphere it's kind of dull, it's not great, you know, and the bathrooms were kind of dirty and the service wasn't all that great, but the food was some of the best food that you've ever had in your entire life. Maybe you order the chicken fried steak dinner, and it's the best chicken fried steak that you have ever had in your entire life, but the atmosphere wasn't that great, you know, it was kind of dirty. That is how I initially felt about Donkey Kong Country Returns. The core of it was so solid. It is so solid. The characters, the story, the gameplay was great, but there's just a lot. The resolution wasn't great. The motion controls were terrible. Just, and the gimmicks I didn't love. I still don't love the blowing mechanic. I think that's very weird, and I think it was utilized fine on the 3DS when you could, you know, actually blow into the microphone. But if I had to make an analogy or compare it to something, it would be that. A restaurant where the food, like, i.e. the gameplay, is so good, but there's just a lot around it that just is not great. Subpar to me, in my opinion. But being able to play it on the Switch with the graphics and with the sound and with the controls, classic button controls with HD rumble, it just feels so good. And I know so many people, a lot of people, and I'm glad for this, that Donkey Kong Country Returns is their favorite Donkey Kong Country game. And I love that for them because now I see it.
Oh my God. I get it.
I get where they're coming from. This is what I wish I would have seen at the beginning. If motion controls weren't such a big deal to me, I can get past resolution, but the resolution just stands out more when I have something like motion controls shoved metaphorically down my throat. I mean, heck, even one of my closest friends in real life, Returns is his favorite Donkey Kong Country game, and I totally respect it, and I understand it, and I get where they're coming from now, because now I can experience this game the way that I have always wanted to. I've always given Donkey Kong Country Returns crap just for that fact, pardon my French, of the motion controls and just being held back by the hardware, whether it was the Wii or the 3DS. And yes, you could obviously argue the Switch is definitely outdated by today's standards, but it's running a game that was released 15, 14 years ago at this point on a much older console, on much older hardware. And just being able to experience it the way that I want to experience it. And if you like the motion controls, you can still use the Joy-Cons. I've heard it's not great. I've heard they're sort of unresponsive and maybe don't provide the best gameplay experience. But if that's the way that you want to play it, then by all means play it that way. That's what's great about giving you the option. The Wii didn't give you the option. You had to waggle your stupid Wiimote to roll, and it's just incredibly stupid on their part, and I will always hold that against the original Donkey Kong Country Returns. But now we have the definitive version of Donkey Kong Country Returns in HD, and that's why I wanted to make this video, because I do owe that game an apology. This game is incredible. I'm thinking about doing an updated Donkey Kong Country tier list with the Donkey Kong Land games very soon. I feel like that would be a very fun video, a very easy video, and just kind of giving my updated thoughts over half a year after I did my initial Donkey Kong Country tier list. But this game has moved up substantially. I definitely like it more than 3. I might even like it more than 2. I'm not entirely sure. I need to let it sit with me just a bit longer, but as it stands, obviously the original Donkey Kong Country is definitely still number 1. Tropical Freeze is number 2, and this honestly might be number 3. It's really hard because it's so drastically different than those original Super Nintendo games, but I'll have to think on it, and I'll make that video at some point. But again, this is just me rambling about how much I now love, enjoy, and appreciate Donkey Kong Country Returns. Even with its slight shortcomings here and there, HD is, bar none, easily the definitive edition of this game. And if you haven't picked it up for the price, I get it. But if you're a Donkey Kong fan, there's really no question about it. This is easily the best way to play this game. So thank you guys so much for listening to me yap about Returns HD. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and just enjoyed my newfounded thoughts on this game. I really do love this game so much. I wasn't thrilled with how I left things, and I think this sums up with how I feel about the game now. Easily a 9 out of 10, quite possibly a 9.5 out of 10. I don't have a lot of problems with it. I wish the soundtrack was a bit more original, and I don't love the blowing mechanic still, like I said, but I don't use the blowing mechanic as a detriment towards the game because it doesn't ever hinder anything to me. The gameplay still flows and feels very organic, and it still introduces mechanics in a very organic way. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know how you're enjoying Returns HD, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great day. Join the Just Nintendo Society Discord server. Link will be in the description, as well as the pinned comment in the comments. Like and subscribe for more content. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day and take care.